All right, welcome everyone to the Friday webinar. Thanks for attending. Happy Friday. Hope you guys have a great weekend coming up. Of course, I'll be on off and on, depending on what the market does. Today, I want to review typical Bitcoin, Ethereum. Let's see what they're doing. And then I also am going to review my own request, so to speak, Nano and CND, because I think we have some short-term trades coming up there until some others show, and then I'll go through requests. So let's take a step back on Bitcoin, maybe a little bit more than I typically do. I just want to point out where we're at in terms of the way of breaking down all of this pattern and all the possibilities. I think, to be honest, that this pattern, as opposed to Ethereum, is a lot messier and can be interpreted a few different ways. So I just want to make sure everyone's really, really clear. We've had, we go back to January, we've had an A wave into February, or I guess it was in a January, and then a February or just before February high for what I count to be a B wave. And then we've had this diagonal shape that it can be considered complete. And at the same time, there's some unideal aspects of it, mainly that what I'm counting as 3 is quite short. And so let's see, I don't have let's see if the orange count shows up if I zoom in. It would be really, honestly, far more cleaner, honestly, if it takes this orange count straight through. The difficulty I have with that is it really takes strong flush while the market is really, close to completion on a lot of counts and really are starting to show signs of wanting to turn. So it's a bit hard for me to see this in terms of where price action is at. However, this would be ideal from an Elliott wave perspective because we have this very questionable third wave in this diagonal that's too short. I know Japel is counting this as, and I have counted this as just C of 3, and that's possible. However, the issue I have with that is this large wave here was not 4 of C. So it's possible that we had a really short seed. I'd have to look at that and see if it's possible. And then this is a 1, 2. This would be our 4, and this would be our 1, 4 of the whole diagonal, not 4 of the C. I'm going to look at that later and weigh in on that because I think that's kind of interesting and plays out nicely, a little bit nicer if it really works fib-wise. And then there's always a possibility that a few people have had possibility that this third is our WXY bottom, and we've got a diagonal starting. The problem to me that already broke with this impulsive move down here. You'd call us a 1, 2, A, B, C otherwise, but this certainly is not a B wave in character, so I would be very doubtful that this is going to turn and continue upward. But always have to be ready for it. That's why we mark support and resistance. Anytime we have a break of resistance or support, something else maybe playing out. So again, it's not impossible. It's just I have to give you the best take of what is likely. And I think the question still is, I want to make sure it sinks in and it's crystal clear that whether this is the final bottom remains to be seen pending on a clean impulse 5-wave move out of this area and not a B wave, because if we get a B wave, if you read my long-term counts in my weekly long view, which happens on Monday usually, it's a chance that this is a B wave and then we see a deeper retrace, and then I would count this likely, assume the setup takes us through 3,000, that we would have our primary 4, and that's, if you guys are all familiar with Donut's analysis, that would be the same view as him. I very much on the long term have his view as an alt, but not as a primary. So that's just a subtle difference. So let's see, why is that? Look at that. Get rid of that. So that's kind of the lay of the land. I mean, overall, we have a projection of the 5,700 area here. I would much rather see this hit 4,600. It would clean up the A equals C proportion we'd expect, but then it kind of basically breaks the third being would end up being the shortest wave in this ending diagonal. It's really not valid. So it really comes down 5,800 or a real flush down to 3,500 in terms of my preferences. I just have a real difficult time seeing this action bring us into 3,500. If we zoom in, where we're at, we have, I would call this clearly bear flag. Again, more overlapping action. Nothing impulsive about this whatsoever. We hit resistance on the nose. I got rid of the fib because I didn't really need it now because I assume this is going to change. However, we only have 3 waves down, and then this is too big to be a 4 unless we're seeing an ABC in the diagonal that's starting for this 5th wave down here. So this is clearly not strong enough to be impulsive action upward, but likewise in this little tiny move, it really is too small to really judge too much, but I don't see a clear wave down starting, even though we hit our head on a resistance and came down and got rejected. Sometimes we just see our fibs work short term and then they get taken out the second time around. So can't get too excited about the downside quite yet. When I look at, I'm going to pull this over here. When I pull this over, even this minor move here is pretty corrective and overlapping. So I would assume another wave down will be seen. Will it swell into a leading diagonal down is kind of the question. So, we can just look at all of the price action and anytime you see overlapping, you can assume that the thrust downward prior is going to be a continuation. There's going to be a continuation of that price action when you have overlapping after such a strong thrust, even on a little micro like that. So I'm looking down short term, nano terms, but it doesn't mean necessarily that our wave 4 has started per se, because I don't have the higher degree 5 up that I'd want to 5 down that I'd want to see at this stage. Ethereum is quite similar. Let's zoom way back on Ethereum. Really, in all intents and purposes, Ethereum, from my standpoint, is playing really brilliant pinball. Garrett had his post it's textbook in terms of the larger fibs. 1382 hit. We're pursuing the 764. If I get rid of these guys, 786, but 764 is just below that at 122, and that is textbook fib hits. So we'd expect a bottom at 122. And again, I've said that over its history, Ethereum on all levels has been quite a pinball player and so much easier than Bitcoin to trade. I made my money in cryptos on Ethereum leverage trading, so it's given me a lot of gifts over the time. So Garrett, I think his count is very worthy, where we have a larger 4, and this A is one of a diagonal. Or I count as a diagonal because I count this as 3 waves, but anyway, you would get a larger 4. So I think that's possible if we're over 230. If we stay under 230, then I'm just going to be counting this count and then watching for another 4 and 5 to show. I have no reason to change my count as long as we're under 230, but over 230, that I still have resistance up to 250, and that would be comparable to Garrett's count. I want to give warning again. Don't always expect me to really weigh in on other analysts' count. I really don't have the time most of the time, but whether it be Chappelle, Gat, or other pinballists, so to speak. But I saw his count very quickly, and I saw the merit of it just instantly with my eyes. So that's why I'm weighing in on it, just letting you guys know. I think it has a lot of merit, and I think it makes a lot of sense in terms of Ether's overall behavior. So, but I just can't say necessarily that Ether is going to blow through 230 at this point in time, based on the action. Zooming in on a micro. Again, so like if we just look through this whole picture, we would expect a bottom at 122, and I'm not going to expect otherwise unless suddenly we see this market do something different. I think it's acting extremely orthodox from an Elliott wave perspective. Again, we can always be proved wrong. Even below 122, it's valid at what we call a non-overlapping diagonal, because wave 1 up off of the 2016 Genesis was topped at 2150, and we're just nowhere near that. And that was Elliott's rules for wave 4. We have more stringent rules in pinball for wave 4s, and so we would be violating our own rules, but we still have to give some leeway to Elliott's own writing back in 1930s. We just tend to call those non-overlapping diagonals if they don't pass through that price action. It'll make me less bullish on it for sure, but I'm also reduced my position in Ether considerably to what I held in 2017 personally in my long-term portfolio. If you guys are still holding a lot, it's fine at this point in time. You don't want to get rid of it now until we know what nature of rally we see. And if we see an impulse out of this that's clean and tradable, then I'll just be marking support, and you guys can use that to manage your positions accordingly. Any break of support out of a non-impulsive rally out of this area, and I'd be extremely cautious, not just on Ether and a lot of things going forward, depending on the coin. Each chart is owned, but I would be super careful, and I won't be holding nearly as much as I'm holding now, and I'd be primarily short and larger. So on the short side, because I think that could be a setup for something really brutal, like Bitcoin going to 478, which is my alternate view. If Bitcoin breaks 3,000, that would be the natural fib hit down in the 400 to 500 region. Never mind 1,000. I would be looking that low until the setup is clear. If 3,000 breaks. But right now, to me, it's a very tradable bottom in this area. Once we're clear exactly where the bottom is, I'm certainly not going to be shy about going long here, because we've kind of run out of runway on the corrective count. Ether, again, just looking at, similar action. We're seeing weakness in the RSI. We've seen the MACD push up, but it's starting to look a little flaggy to me, especially this weakness right here. That means that this can come down, but we don't know if this is going to swell again into a larger degree. 5 down. Let's look at the hourly real quick. I think the hourly looks, this is actually a 2 hourly. Let's go to 1 hourly. Pull this over a little bit more. It almost looks impulsive if I count this a 1-2 and we see another wave up. So now just remember that an impulsive rally in this situation where we had 5 here, 3 down, and 5, this can be a tremendously large C wave in this in this expanded flat. So this can be 5 up and C. However, if we're corrective and into support off of 5 waves, provided this 5 waves completes, then it may be that this is a complex A wave with a B and C in Garrett's count, and we start to see a move up to 250. I'll be watching for that for sure, but something is completing in here for now. The MACD isn't really quite showing it. However, RSI, I think, is starting to tip its hat here. So it's possible that we have a much more correction to go. And honestly, when I see the size of this, what I count as the wave 1-2 in this count, often 4 is longer in time. So it may be that we see a B and another C, unfortunately. And I know everyone's tired of this whole thing, but that might take us into the end of September before all of this finishes up. I don't know until we just see more action. All right, so I think what's interesting about that, though, with some of the coins we have, mainly Nano, and Syndicator, if that's how you pronounce it, we have a really nice impulsive move on top of an impulsive move. So as Gat and I called out, this is not really a pretty 5 up here. However, from a resistance perspective, and I'm always a fib forward person, it's possible that this ugly spot in here is just your ugly, like a running flat inside one wave up, and here's your little 4 here, and then we have an extended 5th, or we have potentially this is our little 4. So I'm really working off the fibs more than the look of this. However, this was corrective in nature, and then now we have another impulse. So evidence of strong move over resistance, even if it's ugly, with corrective down, another impulse forming here. I'm going to look up until support breaks, and I don't remember. I'll refine this chart as we go, but it's somewhere down in the 190 to $2 region off of this 5 up. I thought we completed here, but then when I saw this consolidation up here, I knew we were going to get another wave up. So here we are, and this is now a really solid 5 up. It also plays well into fibs, both on the daily in terms of confluence. So I really like this, even though I really don't like this. So we'll call that as we go. I think hopefully you'll see my chart online and on the board, and I've got roughly a 3x skew if we get a 3x, sorry, possible return if it holds support. So I took my position off. I'm not going to hold a lot of long, like really long. This is a larger position for me than any of the longs I've had recently. Got a nice return over the last few days. I really want to push it up higher down in this low, but I don't want to do it. I want to hold it really with a short leash because the market should be coming down. It may be if we see a drop in Bitcoin and Ether that gives us our setup for this to push higher. But I just want to remember, those players that have been around in September, October timeframe last year, we saw lots of coins run ahead before everything was going. Most of them were large caps at the time. Just because large caps rally first in the past doesn't mean they do it now. I just think it's we shouldn't expect everything to go in unison personally, and depending on what they are. And as you know, in April we saw a small cap run as well, even though that ultimately failed. We had some really nice trades, provided you took the profit. Then when we called that top around May, I took a decent amount off. I didn't take everything off, but guilty as charged. But still, that's the way we manage trading. We take profit, at least partial. All right, so that's where I'm at on that. And syndicator, real quick. I'll post the chart again as we develop, but we have an ugly 5, but I can call that an ending diagonal quite nicely. We have a little 1-2 or a 1-2-1-2 down in here. And maybe this is a 4, this is a B, and this is a C, and this is our 5 as possible. There's lots of different ways to count these sorts of structures. I can see the divergence starting to set up here. So most likely we're going to get a top imminently, and then I'll mark support once it looks like it's confirming, and then we'll take a trade, or I'll offer up the trade out of that support zone, and with a tight stop, and I'll be tranching in from the 382 and then making it larger in the 618, and then stopping below the 764, which it was all my typical game and works very well for me profitably over a long period of time. So that's what we're going to do. That's what I'm going to do. So that's coming up as long as this all holds up. But I don't mind taking some of my portfolio for quick gains while even I'm shorting Bitcoin on the other side of my brain. And that puts me in a pretty low risk situation when I'm just playing the charts for what they are, whether they're, especially when I have some positions going one way and some positions the other. I trade equities that way often, just to be in the lowest risk situation I can, if that makes sense. So that is what I'm looking at Ether, Bitcoin. Let me touch on Ether, Bitcoin, the pair itself, just so we know. I'm going to say again that this pair has classically turned bullish simply because Ether is a higher beta asset. It tends to turn bullish when the market's starting to reverse. What I don't now know is we've gone through ideal support through the 764, and it may be that we get a little 4 here and then see a reset of this 2. So that would mean that actually we should get a larger 4 and then down. So it would mean that this is a B, and then a C or a WXY. We wouldn't need such a large 4 on this to be a WXY, and then we would have a reset of this parentheses 2. It leaves us in a nebulous situation where we're sort of almost there but not there, below support but not quite at the 2. So I'm almost inclined to call this a 2 anyway. We're so close, but I'm just right now I can't really do much with not seeing much action here. I don't even have a confirmed bottom. It just looks very promising the way that's moving off a pretty completed move, but again, a larger 4 and 5 is certainly warranted in a different sort of structure here. So we'll have to see how that goes. But when this turns, and I would say over this 4 would be a nice swing high that you can start to see this rally over. And that's around 0.048. I would assume that then we're going to have a nice strong turn, provided that's got an impulsive structure. So that's where we're at on that. Not much to say about that. Run question roll here is Dash expecting one more low like Ether and Bitcoin. Yeah, it has ever last time I looked. Provided a chart. I'll just look at that real quick. It's not an official request because those are kind of closed, but let's just look at it real quick. Yeah, I mean, to me this action is flaggy. That's a bear flag in my view. I don't have analysis on this at a micro level, but that certainly is sideways off a strong, you see a strong red bar, like I've always said, like that, and then you see overlapping action, that is going to head to new lows in my point of view, unless something else shows. Pretty clear as day to me. And then we'll see if that ultimately is our A wave, or if that's going to be all of this correction. So, yep, looking down on that one for sure, clearly. Until it breaks out over that 4 at least, and then even then it's overlapping, so it may at best be a diagonal. All right. Any other questions on Ether, Bitcoin, Syndicator, Nano? Anything else I'll reserve for later for the requests? Any questions on those at the time being before I move on? Give it about 5 seconds for anybody to type questions. All right, I'll take that as a no. If something comes up, I'll try to follow it up. Let's go to ZCL, which is the first request. And this one, since this one broke down out of the impulse that we were tracking, I think Gat was tracking a lot closer than I was. I was not tracking it that tight, partly because of my data issues. But we had a legitimate 5 up. That's clearly, well, let's see. Let's just before we're at this. Okay, I'm gonna back up on what I said. It is possible. It's just on the verge of being invalid that we still have those 2 intact. And I think there may be some question whether this is full 5 up. I think Gat had a micro of this, and my data was not allowing me to get a good micro. We were at the 887, just a little bit below. We haven't hit that 100, and once we hit 275, this is completely invalid. It's hard for me it's always surprising to me when something like this invalidates when you have a nice clean 5 up. That's kind of what we saw in April. And when in this situation, because you're following an A equals C and corrective, it's something like this little booger in here would be the B wave. So we'll see if this fails, but below 275, certainly it has failed by all Elliott wave rules. If we do literally survive, we have this impulsive move up to the 4 and 500s, which is amazing. But we'll see. And then if we fail, it looks, all of this is overlapping and corrective. The problem is I have no idea what's going on back here. It's clearly corrective also up. So we have corrective up, corrective down. It may be that this expresses it as a triangle, but I'm just going to say that below 275, this is completely nebulous. Where I was willing to say this is an A, B, and C if this 1, 2 holds. I'm not willing to say that this is necessarily clearly a B and a higher C until we actually have an impulsive bottom in this. And so I really don't know where this will go if below 275. Now, if the market is bottoming, most likely this does too, but not something I'm going to stay in. I mean, I think we have some of it in the portfolio, and I'm going to be using any rally. If we're below 275, I'm going to use any rally. Well, it depends. It depends on how strong and impulsive the chart is. It may be that we ride it, but if it's really messy after the market has bottomed, I'm certainly going to cut the loss and get out of there. So it's a very nebulous chart. I can, it's like Bitcoin Cash, Pay USD, 10x is like this. I think XTZ is like this. There's a lot of coins that are expressing this kind of long-term ABC. And, I've been in enough of these to know that don't play with them unless you want to trade some of the short-term setups that you get in them. They're not long-term holds in my point of view. I've had too many of them fail counts. We talk about moon counts failing. These are the ones that fail, not the ones that have clean impulses like Ether. And so I'm trying to do my best to express probability around the skew charts that we have, and they're all noted. And anything I note something that's not valid, I'm not going to get back in personally or add to or take a position if I don't have one yet. Just my trade rules. Next request is MCO. Still holding a nice 1-2 technically. It's a little bit messy correction, but it's valid. I mean, I should say, fair, I'm ignoring all this mess here. We see a lot of coins that do this, and I've had enough track record of ignoring overlapping up and down mess that can't be tracked. Sometimes that proves wrong. Litecoin is probably one of those that I've tried to at least get some of it into the count over time because it made it make more sense. But I am just fair disclosure, I'm ignoring over that and going with the first clear 5 up. That's debatable practice. Certainly, I know Zach and Garrett do that, and I'm kind of following their way, and it's worked for me in Ethereum and other things going forward. In terms of my long-term trading. So right now we've held, we're over the 618. We're barely past the 50. And so and this is a little bit messy in terms of structure, but I count it as a per rules of WXY now. And then I expect one more down. So I don't really have a micro that's super clear on it, but it certainly looks like a nice A, B, and it may even be a triangle the way this is shaped. And then we'll see a C into, it looks like it's tracking 349 at the time being. Let me do a quick A equals C just to see if that looks right. So I get from that perspective a box around, right in there, right in that zone. So even down to there. So that's our zone right there that I would expect this to bottom unless something else is in play, like an extension on the diagonal or something like that. But basically what that means is we need to see an impulse out of this region for this region to hold and expected, preferably an impulse over wave 4, which is at 541. Next one, XDN. I don't think I'm gonna be able to say much more on this one than I have been saying. Let's just see. I haven't had a chance to review all these today. I did a lot of stock trading today, adjusting my portfolio, and it was options close, or one of the options close dates that I had on some of my positions. So I had done some management. So we held that 4 nicely. It looks pretty good actually for what I've been saying. It's 0.002. I think that's what I've been saying. Let's see if there's any other fibs out here. And 0.001 is here, but I don't see clarity that's going to get down that low unless there's a 1-2 setup, and then maybe Bitcoin's taking the orange count and we get a huge flush. That's a possibility. Nothing is broken in this until way down in the 0.00003. So, and also let's do an A equals C on this real quick. I'm going to run out of time if I keep going into this detail on each one. To be honest, even 0.02, it started gets in the zone. So it can bottom anywhere in this spot. Could flush down to the 618. I would assume it's going to be pretty quick. Now, the flatness of the C wave doesn't really suggest it's going to drop suddenly, but it happens sometimes. So we have to be ready for it. So that's your box on that. Right now, I still assume 0.02 is going to hold at the moment until it shows otherwise. ARC real quick. I mean, this is in the zone. Let's see, do we have any sign of a bottom? We don't see. One thing we don't have here is, we get this low. We have a 3-wave rally. We get this low. We're below support for any sort of impulse, and then we have a low here, and we haven't seen it here. So I'm going to assume that we're going to see deeper into this box based on that 3-wave up, and then breaking below support for a 4th. Unless this suddenly turns and gets a diagonal, I'd be looking down. And then I'm not sure it's going to go all the way to 283, which is the 618. But again, it's like XDN. If we get to see a big Bitcoin flush, which I, in some regards, really much prefer, then for orthodox count, then I would see it here potentially. So and that would be kind of a nice hit down there, and that's 28 cents roughly is what I get down there. But we'll see. Again, none of these, it's you can continue to drift until you see an impulse. Unfortunately, we don't have a sign of one yet. Okay, we got a list of huge requests. Let's see. I'm gonna have to go a lot faster. GNT. I'm gonna have to just hit the dailies on these guys just based on how long I'm taking. There's a question on a micro, which I don't have many micros on these anyway. See, I think we finished one in this one. 618 is at 0.058. That is the cleanest. setup right now, and so if something until something else shows, it looks like we are heading to 0.058 in my point of view. So we have the 1 potentially, and then the 2, 3, 4, 5, and it's probably a diagonal based on look, but I'm not quite sure on that. It is, well, okay, I'm going to take an about face. If we see an impulse here, it's possible that this is our 5, and we've already seen it because we have hit new lows. It's not truncated, so I'm not relying on truncation. It's just barely past that. So if we see this turn into an impulse, then it's valid, but I see no sign of it yet in that action right there. So something to watch for, but I don't see it. After that was Doge. Syndicator, I hope that was enough. I'll look at the chart just to look at projections, but it should be clear after all my posts today. So I may skip that one. Doge, we're looking for this 5 up. I don't think this 5 up is complete. I think this is our wave 4, and I still think we'll see a wave up into there. And then if I certainly see this 5, I will be adding to this trade, and I will call this trade. As much as some people hate Doge, it's extremely volatile, which is what I'm looking for in my trading. And we'll be adding to the position at 0.036, and here's our third way up here, 0.05, and that's a beautiful trade. Again, the requirements are that we get that 5, and then we get a corrective move down into 2, and then I will be adding back what I took off, and maybe even then some if I've got other funds that work for me to add in the right spot. So I like it. CND. It's just, yeah, I mean, hopefully after it's clear after I cover it, but we're looking for a trade. Right now I get only a clean projection of 0.058, not the 0.15. This holds, and the wave of 1 of the large 3 anywhere in this zone can be valid, and right now I have a projection off this if all of this plays out to the lower end of that, which means the rest of it's going to be lower pinball. I don't know yet, but that's what I'm looking at. So I'll post these more, just to move on. I'll post these when we get to closer. Nano, I'm going to skip because I've been covering Nano like crazy, and I'll continue to make charts on that, but we're looking at a big trade coming up, and then I'll be posting. I took off what I had on because we have a nice 5-wave move, and then this is a 3x trade if we get into support zone between 226 and 180 is the lowest end of that. If we've got that 280 high. So I'll adjust this when I have a more confirmed top. So I'm jamming now, so I'm probably talking super fast. So you guys have got a lot of requests. You guys surprised me today. BTS Micro, I'm going to skip. That's one of the requests on there because I've been covering it. I covered it pretty tightly today already. So if you don't mind, I'm going to skip that. And I've covered that in so many webinars. Again, if questions, you can always ask me on the board. This looks like an impulse here, guys, in Litecoin. That looks like 5 up. So we'll have to watch that one. That's all I can say about that at this point in time. It's a really small degree if it is. It just has the look, and it has the shape and the proportions. So let's see how this develops. It just isn't high enough degree to care. We really want to see over this 4. So we need to see the next degree. This is promising. I mean, if you want to take a trade on this, I can certainly give people support on this. I'm not a Litecoin fan because the skew is not there. There's so many large caps we've been playing. I mean, it's good, but it's not great. So I'm not personally. I have low attention span for Litecoin these days. But be free to ask me about this trade. Push me on it. We need to see confirmed top in this little 5 up, and then we can call support. XEM. Yeah, looks like we have no sign of a bottom, and it's obviously an impulse. Still 0.684. So, and there's nothing wrong with that on a long-term count. This was a hit. I'm just refreshing my view. 1, 2, 3. So getting a little low. Ideally, actually, no, it works out quite. Let's see. 618 after the 1. Actually, I would ideally like it if this is the end of a diagonal, top of, I'm sure I'm calling that out, and yeah, top of a diagonal right here, or 3 in a diagonal, ABC top. What am I saying here? So when you hit the 123, you really don't want to go as low as 618. So I may reorder this whole count, but it also, we have an A equals C coming into target zone onto a key fib off of the WXY. So it should bottom right at that fib at 0.07 ideally, but I'm gonna have to look at this long-term count. I don't know why I haven't done it already, and see what I see, because ideally we would not get this low after a 1, 2, 3, although 618 technically can be held after 1, 2, 3, 6. So when it's 138, it's 7, 8. So it's okay as a 4 of a 3 and this top of a third. So it still kind of works, but I'm starting to get nervous about this now that I'm really looking at it. But in terms of this is really close to completion here. So if we see an impulse here, then we'll just go with it and then track it. I'm just going to skip BTS because I covered it today. I can't really say much more about that one. EOS, I really don't think I'm going to say much about this. It needs one more low in my point of view. This may be our 1-2 setup here. Certainly looks flaggish. I think that's valid, and so we're going to have that push into the 3s, which I always asked for, is my view. I will look at the fibs of this one closer now to see where this projects exactly, because I think I just laid these in and put it in with confluence at 3. It might be a little bit lower than that. It looks close though, around that 3. It's hard to believe, when I see some of these charts that look like this, I think, man, Bitcoin must be aiming for that 3,500 to get that nice WXY flush. And maybe that's what we see. I would love it personally because I'm very short right now, but some people I know will be kind of crying on the way down. But that is a setup that tends to reverse very quickly, so don't be too afraid. XCC, I think, still want to see $6 on that. I don't have good micro data. The data, it's not even gaps. It's just not coming in quality. When Coinergy moved to $85 instead of free. Let me look at TradingView very quickly and see if I see anything else. Oops. If this gets another wave up, it might be a diagonal, but it's not much there to say we don't get more lows, in my point of view. So I'll be looking at the $6 region still, based on what I've been saying. And that's what I'm saying by memory. So I believe I've been saying 6 in the past. 689 is the 50%. So that's probably what I was looking at when I last looked at that. Nothing new there. So this guy came up on the skew chart. I haven't. Okay, so you got this. So this being a 1, so this is a warning on this chart. This being a 1 assumes that through all of the slippage that we have a 5 up, and I think it's valid. It's valid in terms of the extremes here. So 1, 2, 3, or 3 if that's slippage, 4, 5. So the warning here is that there's some interpretation through slippage, but in these extremes, we don't have a diagonal based on fibs. I might as well pull them to check myself, but I don't think that we have any. Yeah, we almost have an extension to 178. We held the 764. So it's very classic low pinball in terms of these key points. And so, and then we've held the 618. So that puts, I don't know anything on the micro, but that gives us 295 as our wave 1 up. It can be as low as the 3.8, which is about 45 cents. Let's get rid of this guy. So it could be as low, it could be in this zone. If it's doing a low pinball, I have to see. Just to teach a quick pinball lesson, if we see 5 up to 236, then we usually see the next degree at the 618, which is usually 1 of 3. So I like to see if you jump straight through to the 38, that usually becomes your lower 1 of 3. If it's 236, then you often have a next degree to the 618. So it's nice how fibs work that way. Incidentally, on the lower degree, nano is following the 382, so I adjusted some of the fibs today. So, and then that also adjusts all the fibs in the third. And syndicator is most likely in that 382, so getting a lower wave 3 from what I've seen so far. Posting the micro BTS, so DCR is not a high skew play from what I remember, at least not in this degree. I see further lows. Let me orient myself on my fibs. What did I do here? That's an ugly one, by the way. So this may be truthfully a diagonal. Yeah, we're holding fibs actually really tightly and have lots of room to $20 and even to $868 comfortably. And we'd expect this to run to 1,263 eventually, and then I believe 67.59 would be our first wave up in that run roughly. So I'll say that again. If we hold this area where I have the fib right now, let's do for safekeeping a little bit lower. We should see a run to around 63.34 to 69 in the first degree up. But we just have no sign of a bottom yet, and that's provided that we hold $20. And then the 618 on the larger time frame is 1,263, so the next degree after that will most likely be in that level for the rally. And I'm not interested in this one until we get that first degree in because it doesn't have much skew. This is all messy all over the place. These are tight, but that's kind of this should be all contracted out in terms or pushed out in time frame. But that's roughly where we're at. So not one I follow super closely, but the fibs are working. Our chain, I have no real clarity on, and I'll just show you why. And I never will, except, so when I have all of this mess, I can't read that. So I can't do anything with it. I can try to interpret, when I look at this, an attempt at, if I can even get it in view, I can interpret an attempt at 5 up as a diagonal in here, but then I'm just taking all these spikes out. And if that's the case, then this is valid as a nice flat correction. And then we would, I put these fibs where I thought it might be, we might see a run to $1.45 in the first wave up. There's no way, there's not even enough skew to really care about. There's no way in my life would I ever trade something like this personally. I can try to do a count once we have 5 up here. You can do a count off that, and it may be that we're getting it, but it's not particularly clean either. So this one's just really unreadable, and it's definitely not skewed to where I would worry about. Again, 618 to the $1.45. I mean, I don't really care if you're at 28 cents. It's really not interesting. Now, 28 cents and 201 is interesting. That would be the top of 5, so we can always watch for an impulse to really form after that 618, after we get a nice correction off that. But I just don't even know if it's going to get there right now. Not something I trade when it's so sloppy. Next is ETC. I'm not going to be able to say much about that because it's the worst tortured chart in big cap. It's up already in big cap land. This is what I came out with today. I've honestly been taking so many shots at this that I have low confidence in the shape of this correction and how it's, I've looked at diagonals. I've looked at, here's WXY B wave with a C wave down. And even then, this 4 is a little high and also not really quite shaped right. So I'm low confidence on whether this is going to be the bottom, or we also have that other setup I've talked about, which takes it down to 3. And this is a 1-2 setup. Both to me are valid, and I don't have any clarity now. I have a hard time. I guess if Bitcoin takes that big flush, this also could go to 3. But I have very, very, very low confidence that I have a handle on that. Now, when we have a confirmed bottom, I have a higher confidence that this is a 5 up or worst case 3, 4, and then we see a nice 5-way rally, which will go above $70. So it's a nice big cap from a skew wise. I still like it from that perspective. I just not trying to call the bottom very confidently on this. I've been actually just put Coinbase on automatic purchase of this at a small, low level personally. It's one trading strategy you consider because I think it's worth accumulating, but I don't want to go too heavy with no confidence in the structure that it's taking right now. And then ADA, and then I guess I'm going to make it so I can go back on any questions if you guys want to post. This is the last chart that I have, and then I see one question, which I'll answer. ADA looks fine. I don't have a sign of a bottom yet. We're over the 764, which it's possible that this is a bottom, but it looks like it's relying on a diagonal, so I think it's better to expect more lows. And then if we zoom out, the 764 or 786 would have marked, but 764 is going to be just above that at 0.048 or so. So that's sort of the place where I get worried in cryptos for wave twos, but we're not there yet. So hopefully we just bottom by 0.046, 0.048, and then we're fine. And we have no sign of a bottom that's clear at this point in time. So that certainly looks like a 1, 2, 3. 4 is working out, and then the next one's a 5th. So it should take a shot at a bottom out of that zone. I think it's just best to assume that it's going to get to that upper 0.04s in terms of price. All right, so there's a question on the board. Let me read it to myself. Okay, so here's a question. If I wanted to make a new portfolio for intraday trades, only buy and sell each day to make 2 to 3% a day, would XRB be a good coin for this? Any other coins you suggest for large intraday movements? Okay, here's a problem. So you cannot rely on coins to give you that every day. If you look at XRP, I would not touch it. I know that DE trades it really well because he tracks it super close. To me, it's too choppy to get that out of it, and then you'd have to go long and short. You're not going to get it long. I don't know how to short XRP except versus BTC for myself as a US trader. If you're outside the area, I'm sure some exchanges have that, so you have to trade both ways. And then I just don't ever plan on making money regularly every day. I don't trade that way and can't really suggest it. I take setups. So let's talk about this real quick. I take setups over many days and then get money in a big push. So if we want to go back to my trading activity, when I see, if you guys have tracked me, you guys know I've done this really, really well, and my P&L has played out. When I see a strong thrust in price, now I was shorting up here. I saw, this was a key fib, and we got this thrust, but this was a risky trade to get a short after just seeing this. But I rode most of this down short. And then I took all of this pain, and I took some longs in here. Don't get me wrong. I hedged my position. As I said, a hedge of my hedge, because the shorting is a hedge of my portfolio. I took some longs in here, but mainly I was building larger and larger and larger and larger into this bear flag and overlapping. So when this dropped overnight that night, I woke up in the morning with some really nice profit. And this is personally how I trade. So if you're asking, if there might be some people that, out there that trade scalping 2-3% a day. I don't. I trade making a patient position in flags. So if I was trading this trend, this drop correctively and this taking this perspective over support is my long position, and I would do it again here. And then I would start, because I had a key fib here, I would start to cut it back. Same thing as I'm starting to cut back my short position size down here because we're running out of runway. However, I'm still short in here because we have overlapping action after a strong thrust down. So to me, you can just take a line and say, okay, where is the price action strong? And where is the price action weak? And it's crystal clear that we have a downtrend still, if you just mark them up like this. And so, and so here we have bear flag. In this position, so I'm not trying to make 2-3% per day, but on my leverage, I made about 30% return in this drop in a very short period of time. Now it took me 2 weeks to build it, so I probably make up your 2 to 3% a day in one big swoop, and that's the way I trade. So patient position building in these weak setups that are going to go continue on down via the trend, and that's the same thing that's happening here until we break support, which is roughly 68.50. And so I'm going short, 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 and I will look for more funds. I'm probably a little tight on funds, and I will pull some of my other coins out temporarily to get that bigger short position, because once this drops through this flag, it's going to travel at least to 5,600, and I will probably make another 30% on that. And this one took less pain so far. So that's how I trade, and that's how, I'm not saying trade that way yourself. I'm just saying that's my style. I don't think you can take any coin and say it's going to give you 2 to 3% per day. That's not reliable to me. Certainly the setups are there. In a trend like this, you could look for flags within these small trends. But I only trade these with like short, very small position, because I want to be larger in the larger trend. The larger the degree, the larger my position is, except for the long term, where you're talking about big fibs with big distances, and I don't necessarily want to be large long term anymore. But on the swing trade, the bigger the trend, the more my position, I'm willing to take a risk on that. So I hope that makes sense in terms of my trading style. And I can only advise using my style, but you might develop another style where you're able to pull 2 to 3% per day. But I can't advise on that because I don't know how to do it. And it's just unreliable from my experience. So I hope that helps. Any other questions? That's the last question I have on the board currently. Happy to hang up, but if there's any, another one came up. Yep, thank you. You got it. Hope that helped. Any other questions on the board? We got 5-7 minutes. Happy to answer. If any of those things I brushed over, I brushed over BTS. I'll just go back to that. I think we have a potential bottom per the post on the board, which is buried unfortunately under Rana's. I'm trying not to do that, but it's buried under Rana's post. But we have a potential 5 up here. So, and I can call this completed because we have a new low. It's a little bit of a sloppy wave 4 is the only worry. This looks like 3 down in this wave, but it could also be a diagonal. So it's possible we bottom, but we need support to hold. The first warning will be, do a quick little retrace. I don't think this move is finished, but below 095, then we're certainly going down to new lows most likely. So, but right now we have a possible impulse that can bottom this whole deal. All right, anything else? Let's see, a little bit more questions, Vet. Let's see if I can pull off fast. I have, I don't know if I have anything reliable on that one at all. Let's see. It's just an unreliable chart to me. I'll look on this. Let's see. Let me double check this, but as long as we hold 0.095, I guess based on the way I labeled this, I'm calling it impulse. I must have looked at TradingView and gave it the benefit of the doubt because that chart's messy. So if we hold based on this, I'll double check later, but 0.095, then we possibly could have a run to 10 cents in play. I wish I could get rid of that data. It's a mess back here. So possible. For long term, you mentioned one point you consider holding through the 5 versus a 3. Could you explain? Holding, I don't know. What did I say? Because I don't know if I know what that means. I don't hold through wave 5s because if I know something's a wave 2 down, I don't hold it at all. And some of these ended up being wave 2. And so what I've overall said to myself is I just don't want to hold so much through corrections. And I want, instead of taking 25% of my crypto portfolio off the top, I think it was closer to 15, which was a lot of money. Don't get me wrong, because I made a lot in 2017. So I wasn't feeling bad about how much money I was taking home. It was many X times my original principal. The problem is that I then saw a correction of 70 to 90% on the core long-term holdings, apart from the hedging that I was doing short, which I really didn't do until latter after the B wave top in May. So it's something I don't want to do again. I'm going to take 75 to 90% of my portfolio off with the next wave completion, and I certainly don't hold through wave 5 because you have a wave 3 down or wave 2 down. If it's big enough, painful enough, if we're not talking a small wave 2 down, I take it all off personally. Like Ethereum up at the top, wave 5 top will be gone. For the in terms of the coins that I will have remaining positions in the coming rally, it's those that have the heart of a third wave, meaning we have a wave 2 bottom. So let's talk about that real quick so we get that principle down. When we have something like EOS, still have my chart up. I know it's here. There it is. If you have something like EOS that's supposedly putting in a wave 2 bottom, and again, I've said again, when you have an expanded flat like this, you have a very bullish structure. So we can assume that we are likely continuing in a third wave. It's one of the most high probability charts I have for a third wave. Once we have a wave 1 up, I want to take a lot off, which right now targets 23.72. It can be as low as 11. If we get the 11, I probably won't take any off. But if we get this 23.78, we could have a potential drop to 684. Now, I don't want to hold. However, notoriously, these 2s of 3s often are notoriously shallow, so I'm not going to take all of it off. That said, I have no interest in holding a 2 of a 5. So Ethereum, I will probably take all of my Ethereum off for at least a period of 2 down in its 5th wave, because those can often run deep. So that's kind of the difference between the 5s and 3rds in terms of treatment and portfolio. I really want to have my portfolio skewed to that 3rd wave because those coins are going to get pulled potentially faster and may have shorter corrections than the others, or they just don't correct in price but correct in time, potentially. So that's where I hope that makes sense in terms of the question. I don't know what I said in the past. XRP entering the 5th, for instance. Well, XRP I'm not going to hold after this wave, this entire wave, which is 344 is it 344? No, that's Lumen. I have prices in the head locked into my brain cells, and sometimes they're wrong. All right, so if we get to this 1478, well, honestly, after 1 up, I'm gonna hold 0 Ripple. So we'll have a 1 up to about $1. And most of my position was taken at 15 cents. I'm laughing. So I will take all of it off personally there. I will not hold it simply because I don't know what's going to happen in 2. And then I will maybe get back in the trade depending on what we see. And then I will have 0 for sure after a 5th that finishes because this wave 2, which right now is projecting at 11 cents, is going to be brutal. So do you want to be in a $14 to 11 cent move if that's what we see? I don't. So it'll be 0. So might have misunderstood. Thank you. Hopefully I helped. Yes, very helpful. Cool. All right. So I have to go. It's at 2 o'clock, and I think if I'm not wrong, the schedule cuts off. So thank you for attending. Great attendance today. Appreciate it. And if any questions on the board, let me know. I will process recording, and then I will put all the charts in there after I get that recording up. So thanks. Talk to you guys later.